I wonder if the moon really makes people crazy. Oh, we're back. Hi, this is Mr. Norris again, and we're going to cover another topic in my biology video series. So, presenting today, experiment basics. And so by the end of the video, your goal is that you can explain basic experiment procedures. Do you guys know what I mean? Do you? Well, before we talk about that, let's talk about something that scientists all follow. It's called the scientific method, a step by step method used to solve problems. Now, you're probably like, oh, I'm in high school. I've done this before. It's always good to have a little refresher. Plus, in biology, you're going to do experiments. They're not going to be experiments where things explode. If you want that, take chemistry. But in here, we do experiments, but sometimes we do experiments with living things, so we have to look at the ethics of it sometimes. But I'm not going to cover that in here. Um, so the steps to the scientific method. These are my general steps. Uh, they can be summarized or talked about in many different methods or ways, but this is how I usually think of the scientific method. It's it's general. It is kind of the process, but there's stuff that happens. So let me get my laser pointer. And so the first step in scientific method is a problem. What are you trying to find out? What do you want to know? What problem is out there? Kind of like my intro, does the moon make us crazy? That's a problem. Who knows? After that, you're going to research. You have to research, and sometimes research means reading a book. And you're like, no, I'm not going to read. Well, in science, you're going to have to read. You're going to read books, you're going to read scientific articles, you're going to find more information about the topics you're covering. So, does the moon make people crazy? You need to learn about the moon, its phases, its interaction with organisms, its interaction with the earth. You're going to have to look at what makes someone crazy, psychology, all this other stuff. You're going to have to learn a lot of stuff. You're going to have to educate yourself. And then you're going to have a hypothesis. Hypothesis is basically a guess. You're going to guess what you think the outcome's going to be of an experiment. And then you're going to have the experiment. You're going to be testing the hypothesis in your experiment. You're going to actually do stuff. During the experiment, you're going to be gathering data or information that supports or disproves your hypothesis. You're going to analyze that data you gather, making graphs, making tables, looking at it, trying to figure out what the data means. Then you're going to come to a conclusion. Conclusion means you state if you were right and why you're right, or if you're wrong, why it was wrong, and how you can make it right. And for basic science, you're going to repeat it 3 times. But in major scientific studies, they're going to repeat it multiple times. Like right now, when I'm making this video, the whole coronavirus stuff is going on, and they're testing these new vaccines. Well, they're going to have to test them on multiple peoples to figure out what's going on. So that's why it could take up to a year to get a vaccine prepared for the coronavirus. What is a hypothesis? So I already kind of mentioned it's a guess. Well, it's a educated guess or a possible explanation to the problem. It's educated because you did the research. Now, one thing about hypothesis is that they have to be testable. There has to be a way to test your hypothesis. It's usually written in an if-then format, and for the experiments we're going to do, they could be written kind of. It's a general idea. So I have an example here. If I play less time in a video game, say Super Smash Brothers, the higher my grade will be. So say right now my grade's a D. I want an A. I want my my parents have said if I get an A in science, I get something. I don't know what it is. I don't know what you guys want. I wanted money, so I always went with the money. So in the experiments, we're going to have something called variables, things that change during the experiment. And there's two main types of variables: independent variables and dependent variables. So let's talk about each one of those. Independent variables are things I change in the experiment, things that the experimenter is going to change. This is a purposely changed variable. It's done on purpose because you're controlling it. It's the cause of everything. So in my hypothesis was if I play less times in a video game, the higher my grade would be. The changing the amount of time I play in a video game would be the independent variable because that's something I can control. My dependent variable is the outcome of the independent variable. It's the effect of whatever we did. All right? It's caused by the experiment. So in my hypothesis, the less time I play in a video game, the higher my grade will be. The grade I get would be my dependent variable. And so I would have to test this, say, each test in a science class, one time I play my norm out, see what the test is, then the next time I play 2 hours less, see what my grade will be, all that stuff. So, experiment best practices in biology, these are usually kind of what we do. We do have a control group, and this is a group that doesn't receive the independent variable. And then you also have an experimental group, a group that gets the independent variable. And how it works in biology, say, let's talk about the coronavirus vaccine. They could have 100 participants in this trial. Half of them would be given the vaccine, and that's the experimental group. The other half would be given something, but it's not going to be the vaccine. So they're trying to see if the vaccine actually works to prevent people from getting the coronavirus. So they're going to do it, they're going to test it, they're going to look. But the thing is, the people who are given the all 100 people, they aren't told if they're in the control group or the experimental group. The scientists are truly trying to see if the drug or the vaccine actually works. And so it's called a blind study. There's actually something else called a double blind study where not even the doctors know who's getting what. Now, when you do an experiment, you only change one variable at a time. So I cannot, in my experiment, if I play less times in a video game, the higher my grade will be. I can't play less time in video games and study more. I just have to change how much time I play in the video game and study the same amount. That's how that will work. And also, like I said before, you're going to need to repeat your experiments about 3 times because you got to have accurate data. You have to be able to come with an average. And that is the end of this video. I really hope that you learned something. Now, this is some basic science stuff. So if you need to know more, talk to your science teacher, leave a comment, or I don't know, go to a library. And that's it for me. Miss Norris, it's out.